What if I told you that Middle-earth's greatest hope wasn't always a king or even a ranger? In fact, he was once just a child, living in obscurity, yet his bloodline held the key to the fate of the world. Before he was crowned king, before he led the charge at Helm's Deep, and long before he became a legendary ranger, Aragorn was simply a boy, a child born into a world steeped in ancient prophecy, one who carried the burdens of generations past. His journey, forged in secrecy and silence, would shape the man we know today, the hero, the king. But who was Aragorn before the Lord of the Rings? How did the child of Gondor's ancient line transform into the mysterious Ranger Strider? Today, we uncover the early years of Aragorn's life, the shadows that shaped him, the battles fought in the unseen corners of Middle-earth, and the destiny that whispered to him long before the War of the Ring. So let's start at the beginning, with a legacy as old as Númenor itself, and a prophecy that clung to the very soul of Middle-earth. Long before Aragorn emerged as the ranger we know, a lad was born in Middle-earth during the Third Age. This was no ordinary boy. He hailed from a lineage steeped in history and honor. Aragorn, also known as Elessar, descended from the line of Isildur, the great king who first took the throne of Gondor. His ancestry traced back through the noble lineage of the Dúnedain, the men of the West, who were granted long life and wisdom. From Isildur, Aragorn's line continued through his son Valinor, and onward through generations of kings and lords. The blood of Elrond, the founder of Gondor, flowed in his veins, as did the legacy of the ancient realm of Arnor. Each ancestor, from the proud kings of Gondor to the chieftains of the Dúnedain, shaped the destiny of the lands they ruled. Though many of his forebears faced trials and tribulations, their spirit endured, echoing through the ages. The weight of his heritage, rich with the echoes of valor and sacrifice, prepared Aragorn for the monumental role he was destined to play in the fate of Middle-earth. Aragorn came of age in a world precariously close to darkness. His birth in 2931, the Third Age, whispered a faint hope into Middle-earth's future. Arathorn too, his father, was Dúnedain chieftain. His mother, Gilran the Fair, had been hesitant to wed at such a young age. But the union was destined, seen not by ordinary humans, but by the eyes of seers. Gilran's parents, Dirhael and Iverwen, were not typical couples. Both had been blessed with vision and had seen the dark clouds hovering over their daughter's future. Dirhael had objected to Arathorn and Gilran getting married. For his daughter, he expected sadness, a fleeting marriage ending in early widowhood. With her better vision, Iverwen sensed something more, a glimmer of hope that their child would carry the weight of her people's future. Iverwen spoke the words that would shift the course of Middle-earth's history despite Dirhael's initial resistance. If we marry now, hope may be born for our people. This union would not only bind their hearts, but also lay the foundation for a legacy that would rise in the darkest of times. Aragorn's birth was more than just the continuation of a family. It was the spark igniting the fire of resistance when hope seemed all but lost. Yet early in Aragorn's life, tragedy struck, casting a long shadow over his future. An arrow from an orc claimed the life of his father, Arathorn, when Aragorn was just 2 years old. Haunted by the spectre of her husband's fate and burdened with the knowledge of her son's destiny, Gilran was left to raise the lad alone. The death of Arathorn was not unexpected. Dirhael's prophecy had foretold it. This loss created a gaping void in the world's defenses and shattered Aragorn's young heart. Leaderless, he became the last precarious thread of their ancient lineage, destined to carry the weight of an entire people on his shoulders. Gilran knew her son required more than just her protection. He needed wisdom and guidance that went beyond her own abilities as a mother. She made the difficult decision to take Aragorn to Rivendell, the last homestead of the elves, where he could be safeguarded from the dangers of the world and nurtured into the leader he was destined to become. Under the care of Elrond Halfelven, Aragorn would find both protection and a mentor who could help him realize the potential that burned within him. Though this decision weighed heavily on Gilraen, she understood the magnitude of her sacrifice. She once said, "I gave hope to the Dúnedain. I have kept no hope for myself." This poignant reflection underscores the depth of her dedication. She had surrendered her own future for the hope that her son would fulfill his destiny. In Rivendell, young Aragorn was renamed Estel, meaning hope. It was a fitting name for a child whose very existence embodied hope for the free peoples of Middle-earth. Yet, despite the new identity, Elrond secretly harbored the truth. Aragorn was Isildur's heir, a fact that would soon make him a target of dark forces bent on ending his line for good. Rivendell was a place where the old Middle-earth stories came alive, not only a refuge. Aragorn grew up surrounded by echoes of heroes and legends as a young child. Whispers of wars waged, kingdoms lost, and great deeds carried out in bygone eras permeated the hallways. 10 years old, Aragorn would have seen guests arrive in Rivendell, which would later define his life. Wise and enigmatic, Gandalf the Grey arrived bearing a company of dwarves and one rather unusual hero, Bilbo Baggins. Bound for the Lonely Mountain, this company stayed in Rivendell for several weeks, but it's not clear if Aragorn ever came across them. However, Aragorn developed the relationships that would define his early years in Rivendell. He got near to Elladan and Elrohir, the twin sons of Elrond. Both accomplished fighters, the brothers raised young Aragorn under their direction. Traveling into the wilds of Eriador together, they taught Aragorn survival, hunting, and tracking. But their relationship developed in common suffering, not only friendship. Deep within Elladan and Elrohir, their hatred of orcs burned like a fire started by a terrible past event. Traveling to Lorien, their mother, Celebrian, had been taken prisoner by the orc. While they saved her, the suffering she went through left scars that even Elrond's healing could not heal. Celebrian left Middle-earth for the Undying Lands finally, leaving her sons to hunt orcs with a terrible vengeance. Aragorn started to discover the gloom of the world and the will it would take to face it in these early forays with Elladan and Elrohir. Aragorn had exceeded most men twice his age by the time he turned 20. Along with Elladan and Elrohir, he had honed his tracking and combat techniques and grown acutely aware of the hazards hiding in the wild. Still, everything changed on Aragorn's 21st birthday. Summoning him to his chamber, Elrond, who had raised him with the care of a father, prepared to reveal the truth that had been kept hidden for 2 decades. In the quiet, ancient halls of Rivendell, Elrond disclosed a secret that would alter Aragorn's path forever. Aragorn was not merely a noble orphan or an ordinary ranger. He was the heir to Isildur, the last descendant of a royal bloodline that stretched back to the lost kingdom of Númenor. As Elrond spoke of the weighty destiny that now lay before Aragorn, he also reflected on the unexpected nature of fate. "This is the hour of the Shire folk," Elrond said, "when they arise from their quiet fields to shake the towers and councils of the great. Who of all the wise could have foreseen it? Or if they are wise, why should they expect to know it until the hour has struck?" Elrond's words were not just a reflection on the surprising strength of the humble, but also a reminder of the unpredictable twists of destiny. With this knowledge, Aragorn received the heirlooms of his ancestors, the Ring of Barahir and the Shards of Narsil, the sword that had once severed the hand of Sauron. These relics, far from being mere symbols of a lost past, now served as tokens of the future Aragorn was destined to forge, a future that rested entirely on his shoulders. He felt the weight of his background firmly upon him. Not only was he the heir of Gondor and Arnor, his bloodline was a tapestry woven from the threads of Númenor's kings, tracing back to Elros, who chose to be a man and became the first king of Númenor. Alongside this noble heritage, the tales of Beren and Luthien also flowed through his veins, echoing the intertwining destinies of men and elves. His legacy was a dual-edged sword, capable of inspiring greatness or leading to ruin. And along with this insight came obligation. Elrond cautioned Aragorn, not yet ready to assert his birthright. He would have to prove himself in ways that would try every thread of his existence before he could be deserving of the throne. Many trials lay ahead. Aragorn's heart would be tested most in these dark days of self-discovery. Not in the wilds or in battle, but by chance meeting with a vision of grace and beauty. Daughter of Elrond, Arwen Undomiel had come back to Rivendell from Lothlorien. Aragorn found her wandering alone through the birch woods close to Rivendell on a quiet day. Her beauty hit him with the weight of 1,000 legends, and in that instant he thought he had seen Luthien Tinuviel, the immortal love of Beren, the woman whose name rang through song and narrative. Calling out Tinuviel, Tinuviel, he identified Luthien personally. And in that brief instant, fate entwined their paths. Aragorn carried secrets, the unknown weight he would expose only in time, in addition to the weight of the shadow always hovering ever nearer. His profile across Middle-earth developed over the years. He had wandered in areas few people ventured to explore. His face showed the traces of a man who had suffered much, but never wavered in his will. One person, however, understood Aragorn's heart more deeply than anyone else. Arwen Undomiel, daughter of Elrond. Beneath the worn skin and weary eyes of the ranger, she saw the spirit of a man destined for greatness. Their first meeting had been many years earlier, under the golden trees of Lothlorien, at a time when Aragorn was only beginning to grasp the full weight of his heritage. From Estelle, the hopeful child raised in Rivendell, he had grown into Aragorn, a man now carrying the burden of the Dúnedain's legacy. In the quiet, sacred woods of Lothlorien, their love blossomed in secret, shielded from the eyes of the world. Aragorn was fully aware of the price of his love for Arwen. It wasn't just the looming shadow of his own mortality that stood between them. The fate of Middle-earth itself, the resurgence of Sauron, and the future of both Gondor and Arnor hung in the balance. Yet beneath the stars of Serin Amroth, they made a promise, a union of souls destined for both joy and sorrow. Reflecting on his love for Arwen, Aragorn once said, "I would rather share one lifetime with you than face all the ages of this world alone." This quote encapsulates the depth of his devotion, a love so powerful that it outweighed even the long years of separation and the uncertainties that lay ahead. Though Aragorn's path was fraught with danger, he carried the light of Arwen's love with him as he journeyed beyond Lothlorien. His duties called him to the farthest reaches of Middle-earth, where few dared to tread. His journey eventually brought him to Gondor, where, under the name Thorongil, he fought alongside Ecthelion II. Aragorn's prowess in battle earned him the admiration of Gondor's people, but his heart remained tethered to Arwen, the woman who had seen greatness in him long before he had fully embraced it. But Gondor was not the place where his trip would finish. He had to keep on, even though it hurt him to part from people who had come to believe him. Aragorn's fate had not yet been completed. He could never really rest in one place for very long. Over his long years of wandering, Aragorn passed many of these countries, from the great plains of Rohan to the barren reaches of Harad, from the high peaks of the misty mountains to the shadowed depths of Moria. He had walked where few others could. Every stride, every struggle, and every scar brought him closer to knowledge, not only of his own fate, but also of his part in Middle-earth's destiny. He met Gandalf the Grey in those years, the enigmatic wizard whose knowledge was as deep as his friendship was solid. Together, they pursued rumors of dark agents and evil schemes, battling Sauron's increasing sway. But the weight of the approaching war did not become evident until Aragorn came upon Gollum. Originally a creature not unlike a hobbit, the One Ring had turned Gollum into something far more sinister. One thing was clear: Gollum possessed knowledge that could either save or doom Middle-earth. The creature's fate was entwined with the ring in ways Aragorn could not completely understand. Aragorn then followed him across the barren wilderness of Anduin, across the shadows of Mirkwood, even into the boundaries of Mordor itself. Taking Gollum was no simple task. Driven by the dark pull of the ring, the creature was sloppily elusive. Aragorn, though, was unrelenting. Deep in the dead marshes, his knowledge of the wilderness and unmatched tracking ability let him finally surround Gollum. It was a bleak place, full of the ghosts of long-ago conflicts, the dead staring up through the dark waters like shadows of the past. From the dead marshes to Mirkwood, where Gollum would be under Thranduil's wary eye, the path was difficult. Aragorn drove Gollum north for 50 days, constantly alert to Sauron's spies prowling the territory. Avoiding the main roads, he crossed mountains and rivers and negotiated the deep forests, where few people ventured. Every day was a fight of wills as Gollum battled his captor, snarling and cursing but never really free. Aragorn was tired when, at last, they arrived at Thranduil's Mirkwood Hall. Having crossed more than 900 miles, the weight of the work he carried slowed down every stride. Nevertheless, he had done it. Now, safely under elves' custody, Gollum's secrets would shortly be exposed. The dark creature. Still, there was hardly time for relaxation. Sauron loomed ever nearer, even as Aragorn brought Gollum to Mirkwood. Eastern news was dismal as the Dark Lord organized his army for a last attack on the free peoples of Middle-earth. Growing more paranoid, Denethor the Steward turned against Gandalf and Aragorn, whom he considered rivals for the throne he so fiercely guarded in Gondor. Denethor's mistrust wasn't baseless. Long a secret figure in Gondor's history, Aragorn was under the name Thorongil, and his presence had always generated rumors. Though many, including Ecthelion, respected him, the time had come for Aragorn to emerge from the shadows and assert his proper heirship to Isildur. Still, much to be done before that could occur. Gandalf had disappeared, leaving Aragorn wondering about his former friend. Aragorn then went back to the north to Bree, where he resumed his duties as Strider, the ranger guarding the Shire and the territories beyond. Though basic, this was a life with quiet purpose. While the Shire's hobbits lived in blissful ignorance, Aragorn knew their fate was connected to the fate of all Middle-earth. It was during this turbulent time that Aragorn first crossed paths with Frodo Baggins, the unassuming hobbit who unknowingly carried the fate of the world. Initially, Frodo was wary of the enigmatic ranger who had suddenly entered his life. Trust did not come easily, especially with the shadow of danger creeping ever closer. But Aragorn's unwavering resolve and keen awareness of the perils ahead quickly proved him to be a steadfast ally. His sense of purpose was evident from the start. Setting out on a perilous journey with Frodo and his companions, Aragorn led them away from the peaceful Shire and into the wild lands where danger lurked at every turn. His mission was clear: to protect the hobbits and guide them to safety. As the weight of the task grew heavier, Aragorn made a solemn vow. "I am Aragorn, son of Arathorn, and if by life or death I can save you, I will." This declaration embodied the gravity of his commitment, not only to Frodo, but to the entire quest to stop Sauron's resurgence. With Sauron's agents, the Black Riders, already hunting them, their dark forms haunting every path and forest, the urgency of their journey grew. Aragorn bore the responsibility of leading the hobbits to Rivendell, where crucial decisions about the fate of Middle-earth would be made. The path was fraught with danger, but Aragorn's leadership and determination became their guiding light through the growing darkness. The trip was dangerously fraught. At Weathertop, the Black Riders almost caught up to them. A Morgul blade seriously injured Frodo. Aragorn battled valiantly to save his friends, but his abilities were insufficient for the terrible might of the Nazgul. Still, he persisted, driven to get to Rivendell before it was too late. Aragorn knew the time for hiding was running out when at last they arrived at Rivendell. The ring's fate was decided upon when the Council of Elrond convened. Aragorn would join the Fellowship, a gathering of courageous souls selected to bring the One Ring to Mount Doom, where it could be permanently destroyed. But the weight of his past and the shadow of his future loomed huge even as Aragorn replaced him among the Fellowship. He was Isildur's heir, the man meant to take back Gondor's throne and guide the free peoples of Middle-earth in their worst hour, not merely a ranger from the north. And thus the voyage went on, Aragorn at its core. His drives forward were his love for Arwen, his obligation to Gondor, and his allegiance to the Fellowship. Aragorn marched, never faltering, never giving in to hopelessness, through the dark halls of Moria, across the plains of Rohan, and into the very heart of Gondor. Aragorn knew his toughest test was still awaited as the War of the Rings drew near, but he was ready to meet whatever darkness lay in his path, the sword of his ancestors in hand, and the hope burning in his heart, guiding him. Son of Arathorn, Aragorn was more than just a ranger. He was the king ready to ascend when Middle-earth most needed him. That was the story of Aragorn, the ranger who became king. From the shadows of the wild to the throne of Gondor, his journey is one of resilience, leadership, and the ultimate triumph over darkness. But what are your thoughts on Aragorn's rise to power? Do you think he was destined for greatness from the start, or was it his choices that shaped his fate? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into Middle-earth's most legendary characters, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more, and ring the bell so you never miss an adventure. Thanks for watching.